All right, good afternoon. Happy Friday. Welcome to the deep dive. Fun. What's up, VP Tech Ops? Happy Friday to you as well. Thanks for tuning in. And Yano, nice to see you today, my friend. Let's go. I think we're good to go. So, yes, welcome. This is the deep dive. For anyone that's new, my name is Tim. I go by Foamy Guy on GitHub and Discord. This is a weekly live stream where we are working on stuff in the CircuitPython world. This live stream was started by Scott Shawcroft, lead developer of CircuitPython. He is out right now on parental leave, and I am here filling in on the deep dive streams. When Scott's around, and kind of how this stream started, he's kind of working on, as the lead developer, he's working on cutting edge, whatever is up and coming in CircuitPython, new ports, new modules, things like that. I tend to work usually a little bit of a higher level. I venture into the core sometimes, but certainly not working on the huge kinds of tasks that Scott takes on. So we'll be getting more into the Python layer and stuff when I'm around, whereas he is usually working in C in the core. Although we do venture down there some weeks when I'm around too. If you are in fact new and don't really have any idea about what I just said, let me take a step back and give you a quick high-level peek or understanding of what we're talking about here. So CircuitPython is the main thing that this stream focuses on. You can learn more about it at the main website, circuitpython.org. This is basically a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. Typically, the way it works, you plug these microcontrollers into your computer with a USB cable. It shows up like a thumb drive, and then you can edit a Python code file on that thumb drive. And when you save it, the microcontroller, the computer that's on these devices, will actually execute that Python code for you. And then you can hook up all sorts of other peripherals, doodads, electronic, devices, lights, buttons, beepers, sensors, displays, pretty much any kind of electronic thing you can imagine. You can hook up to these microcontrollers and then interact with from your Python code. Today I am back on the Fruit Jam action. So Fruit Jam is an upcoming microcontroller device. It's not released yet, not for sale yet, but we are working on getting it ready to be for sale. And so I'm working on some of the projects surrounding it, and that's what we'll be doing on Deep Dive today. I will take a moment and, as I try to always do, and say thanks to Adafruit. This is their website, adafruit.com. Adafruit is a hardware and software company based out of New York. They are the ones that make CircuitPython possible by paying myself, as well as Scott, and the rest of the team of folks who work on CircuitPython. There are some folks who work on the project full-time and are paid by Adafruit to do so. There are some folks who work on it part-time, and there are some folks who work on CircuitPython as part of their work for Adafruit, but also work on Arduino and all kinds of other things as well. And so huge thanks to them. I certainly obviously think it's really cool that they are willing to pay myself and other developers to work on open source code. I love that there are companies willing to do that. So if you similarly like that and would like to help support them in CircuitPython, one of the easiest ways you can do that is purchase hardware from them at adafruit.com. Diving in today, let's catch up on the chat. What is up, Beatagaff? Graph, over in YouTube, and Ask Patrick W on Discord. Nice to see both of you, my friends. So, jumping in today, I am in Fruit Jam land. Like I said, I have rigged up a different way to view the Fruit Jam screen. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Fruit Jam has an HDMI output, and I have the HDMI currently plugged into a capture card, which I can then pull into my PC screen here so that we can see it on the stream without me having to try to point a camera at a physical display and stuff like that. You will see every now and then it seems to blink to black like that. I need to actually go and plug it into a real display and figure it out if that is happening on real displays, or if that is just a capture card thing that's going on. But yeah, I have been noticing the sort of blink to black sometimes when either the display is updating, or in this case, I think I saw that there was a ping going back there for the IRC server, which kind of hints at the next thing that we will be looking at. Open source support for the win. Yes, totally agree there for sure. So I have figured out this week, I had been using OBS to grab the capture card and put it on my display here. That came with its own whole host of problems because it interferes with the circle camera that I'm inside of here in my stream. The camera that feeds that gets all tangled up with the capture card, and they want to be each other inside of all the OBS scenes, and I have to do this whole unplug, replug, open, close, reopen dance with OBS whenever I want to use it. I have figured out that you can actually view this in VLC though, which is super convenient, and it seems, so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, it seems like I can do this at the same time as all my OBS stuff is running, and it doesn't interfere with anything, and I don't have to do all of those unplug and restart games that I was doing before, at least so far. So this is very nice. Diving into the actual project, if anyone saw Show and Tell this week, then you will have already seen the beginnings of this. For anyone who did not, what I am working on is an IRC client for the Fruit Jam. I have come a bit farther than I showed off on Show and Tell, so there's a bit of a difference going on here compared to then. But in essence, it's still the same project, and yeah, that's what I'm working on. I have basically, since Show and Tell, I have refactored this to use Dang, D-A-N-G. Dang is a Curses subset. Curses is a terminal GUI framework, like a terminal text-based program framework for being able to draw text in various bits of the screen. A good example is like how I have this bottom bar here, and I have it as a different color. And that bottom bar is kind of like static, whereas the rest of this text will actually scroll. And if we go and find the IRC channel, IRC is like a chat thing, so I have this other channel loaded up here. I can put a message, and we'll see the message come in here. And we can see like this top part here will keep scrolling, and the bottom bar stays static. So I have kind of rebuilt this program to use this curses-like thing, but I do have a problem with it, which is where we are starting today, which is that the scrolling does not actually work. So if I just see if there's a way I can have these where we can kind of see them both without that being tiny. I don't really care if this is tiny. Oh, actually, that's kind of nice like that. Oh, I see. So that comes in. So far, so good. But if we keep going here, another one. It blinked out on us, and there it's scrolling up, and now things have gotten a little messed up. So, like, a bunch of the stuff is now all duplicated. And I believe what is basically happening is when it writes each row and it needs to scroll, I think what it's doing is if the row that it's scrolling onto was longer than the new row that's scrolling into position, whatever part was after the end stays there. So like https librechat/policies is longer than support@libre.chat. That was the end of that row. Support@libre.chat was the end. So when that scrolled up, it overwrote https, but because it wasn't longer, it did not overwrite policies. And that is like completely wrecking the scrolling. So that is where we're starting as far as actual troubleshooting and code today. I will mention also the colors and the terminal here. This is kind of fun. I made a color Adafruit color terminal, which I'll release as a library. If anyone is interested in getting their hands on it right away in super early alpha state, let me know. I can put a gist or something. But I basically have a custom terminal class which holds a instance of the normal terminal class, but adds ANSI escape codes support, and a bit more than what is built into the core. There is actually a little bit of ANSI code support in the core, but it's like all or none. You can change the foreground color. You can maybe change, I think you can change the background color as well. But it's all, you know, the entire terminal changes at once as soon as you send the escape once. My new custom one that I'm working on there, the colored terminal, this one actually works more like a traditional terminal where you have a beginning color sequence and a reset color sequence, and anything between those two will show up as the color you say. So like Foamy Guy here, there's the beginning sequence for blue, there's the reset sequence at the end, and it goes back to white. So the colored terminal is kind of all tying this project together in this case. But I don't think the problem is with that. Let's see here. VLC, more open source goodness. Yep. VLC, always got to love it. So you need some space filling. Yeah, so you would think, and I would think certainly you're on the right track. But the thing is, I think that I already have it. So that's where this gets weird is, I think that I already have it. So let's pull up the rest of the code that matters here. So this is just calling run IRC client, which is inside of Curse's IRC client. So there's a few key files right here. So there's color terminal. That's the class that's letting me have colors in the terminal. There's Curse's IRC client. So this is the Curse's program that is the IRC client, the GUI program that's displayed here. All of the logic for it is inside of this file. But there is also this other file, IRC client, without Curse's. This one is just the network, essentially. This is just the connection to the IRC server. It has like a connect function. It has disconnect. It has update, which you call in your main loop. This will fetch any new messages and process them for you. It has a send message function. So this one is just like an interface to the server, essentially. The Curse's IRC client makes an instance of IRC client. The primary output of IRC client is the message buffer right here. Whenever a chat message comes in, you know, you have to call update, but when you call update, it's going to read from the server. When it reads from the server, it will find out if it's a full message. It will call process message. And if it is an actual chat message, there's a bunch of different messages that go back and forth between the client and server. But if it's an actual chat message, like someone sent a new message in the chat room, then it will go and build the string, which gets put into the message buffer. And the message buffer then, inside of here, we loop over the message buffer. Well, most of it, one screen's worth of it, essentially. We loop over that, and then we're trying to put all the messages from in the message buffer onto the screen. So message buffer actually contains lines. Those lines, they could be chat messages like these ones. They can also be like all these lines up here. These are welcome messages from the server. So those get put into there. And to your point, like kind of blocking out, we kind of need to put spaces after everything. So what happens here is we loop over these. We say if the line is longer than the number of columns, this hasn't really come into play yet. I don't know if this is working or not, but I don't think it's the problem. Set line, though, this is the next thing we do, set line. So that's going to go and say, if image square brackets row. So image is a list which contains essentially one item for every line on the screen. Now, one thing I will say, lines here probably is bigger. Well, no, yeah, we'd want that to be the full size. I was thinking, would we want the -2? So I have -2 right here so that we subtract one line for the status bar down there, and then the line right above that is actually for typing the other way. I have a USB keyboard that's plugged in. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to backspace right now, and I did typo, so we can send a message there, hello, with one L, and then you can see we have the same problem with the scrolling. So like the one from another one, it's kind of getting overwritten there. But if we go and look in the chat room, we can see that actually the correct message did get sent. This is just a visual bug on our side. So 2 rows there. So we subtract 2 rows from our total height, and that's how many we're slicing off the buffer. But when we get into set row, image is kind of like another buffer, essentially. It's kind of like making it so that if the line is already showing at that spot, then we don't bother showing it again. Maybe that's our problem. But I don't think so, because that should return before it does anything. I don't think it's happening. So that's what image row is all about. That's like, so we don't update the same thing that's already set. So we check if it's set, we return. We set it so that we can, check next time. We then say line plus equals space times the number of columns minus the length of the line minus 1. So this should pad the whole rest of the window with spaces inside a line, and then that gets called to add string right here. That says add string row 0. I believe that's X and Y, or Y and then X, I guess, actually. So this is standard string. This is in Dang versus submodule. Here we have screen object, which has add string. That's going to move to XY, and it's going to write the text into the terminal. And the text should have all those spaces in it. Doesn't seem like it's working. So I'm gonna say length before is equal to length of line. We're just gonna kind of print these things out, because it seems to me like that should be already happening, but it's not when we look at the screen. So now it's time to start asking, like, is it not happening at all, or is something else making it not work, or what's the difference, basically? So let's say we can go before length is length before, and then after we have the length of line before we modify it, then we modify it with spaces. So we should see that these are like 2 different numbers, and the second one should be bigger pretty much always. Okay, so I got a broken pipe error instead of a keyboard interrupt. Wonder if a disconnect would work after a broken pipe error. I'm not sure. Anyway, the real consequence of this is that I'm going to have to change my username, because the fact that we got a broken pipe error means that I did not disconnect, which means that the old connection technically is still there with the username. It will time out after a while, like maybe 30 seconds or a minute or something. But in the meantime, if I were to try to rejoin, it would just be like, you can't, because someone already has the name. Okay, we got connected, we got disconnected as well here at the end, but that doesn't really matter so much. Yeah, totally, it does have a bigger length after, so it seems like it's putting the spaces there. I guess we would want to make sure that it still is when we get a new chat message, so maybe let's set this so that we can actually receive a message. Let me catch up on the chat here as well. CP is supposed to support ANSI scrolling ranges natively now. Have you tried that? I have not tried any of the scrolling stuff. The ANSI scrolling, I have not. I'm kind of scared too, because there's this whole other bit of machinery going on with this project where there's like a whole window and a buffer of lines that's kind of outside the terminal, and then the terminal's being updated every every frame essentially, rather than just kind of like staying how it was or whatever. I should probably look into that though at some point, but the short answer is I have not yet, and I'm a bit scared too. That stream is perfect timing for the question I had. I was wondering if it's possible to have curses in CircuitPython using terminal IO. Yeah, so that is this pretty much. If you want early access, so to speak, it's sort of kind of a little bit published already in FruitJam OS. If you look in built-in apps, editor, Adafruit editor, there's this file dang, which is basically a subset of curses that works on CircuitPython. There's no documentation right now. The only, like, you can look at the editor app if you want an example of how to use it, but that's like the only thing right now. I'm hoping that we will do some documentation. I have gotten a lot more familiar with it by building the IRC thing. So the editor was kind of the first thing I made with it. This IRC thing is the second thing. I'm kind of picking up bits and pieces as I go. So hopefully we'll make a guide that covers that. But yeah, it is out there if you want to use it. Otherwise, if you hang a bit, it will, I think, like this one I've renamed to Adafruit Dang. I think it's going to get, like, my intention is to release it as its own library as well. Idea here is maybe enough to using VT100 support to actually use terminal and do a text UI. Yeah, that's where I would like to get to as well. I'm hoping that we can end up there. Next step is about custom characters so that games can be done in text mode like good old days with Sinclair. Custom characters, so you can use a different font, but I don't know what it does to performance. It might make it slow. The only experience I have with trying a different font, I was trying the new LV fonts, and I was trying it in the editor, and it did make it quite a bit slower, but I did not really spend like any time troubleshooting it. I just went back to the built-in font, and I haven't touched it since. But custom fonts worked. It rendered, but it was like slower in the editor when I was working on the editor. This was like weeks and weeks back, and I haven't touched it since then. But you totally can use a custom font by just passing it. Well, okay, so this is color terminal, which is the custom one. You'd have to do it a little bit differently, actually. I don't. Do I? Wait, let me. Yeah, I don't have like simple test code or something, but basically the built-in terminal, the syntax is different, the way that you set it up is different, but you can totally use a custom font because that's what this is doing internally. And then so with a custom font, obviously you could customize it. You could put other graphics inside. So you could take up characters you don't need, and you could put custom characters in if you wanted. There's something trimming the text before it gets printed. I don't think so. So the only thing that's like trimming, I think, is like this. But I don't think we are actually getting this at all. I don't think this is actually occurring. Font with a few sprites, like a game element, like do the trick. Great work. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so curses. So let's try this. And then color terminal may end up eventually in the core. The truth is, the main reason why I made it at the Python level was just because it's easier for me to wrap my head around what it's doing and how it needs to do it at the Python level. So I built it in Python, and it kind of like extends terminal. It doesn't technically extend terminal because I had trouble with that. But it could potentially live inside the core in the actual terminal, or maybe we make a new one that's a new module or something. But we'll see. For now, it is Python. And my intention is to release it as a library as well, although it is still brand new. It has not been done yet. Okay, let's get this, and let's see when a new message comes in, do we get what we expect for this? which is that we should have a small number and then a big number. That seems fine. And we totally are not getting the too long that I just added here. So we're not going inside that. And as far as I know, like nothing else is doing any kind of clipping. It must be a hint that it doesn't matter until we scroll. I guess that's not the case though, because until we scroll, we only add at the bottom. I guess it makes sense that it doesn't matter until we actually have enough. We can kind of keep doing these. And once we hit critical mass, things scrolls and do this. Are we... Well, so one thing is... Well, that doesn't matter, does it? I was gonna say, so we're like modifying this after we add it to that. I'm at a bit of a loss. I'm just gonna print the line, I guess. I mean, don't necessarily expect to find anything particularly interesting, but at this point I'm perplexed. Oh, that's interesting. We got the gray in there as well. That's kind of cool. So that's one of the cool things about the ANSI support with the color terminal is that now, oh, that's interesting. Now we do have a bunch of line too longs. Wait, why is that suddenly different? And where's the rest of my, where's all my numbers? Why did we not get any of these? Wait, what? Well, okay, maybe we didn't get it. Okay. Okay. So one thing that's interesting is it appears like there's a new line at the end of all of these, right? Because these are printing and then here's the line, but then we kind of have an empty line. Maybe that's part of the problem. Now these, I don't know what's going on with these. This is just continuing too, I think. Is it? Yeah, this is totally just continuing. Line would be too long. That's super weird because when there's one that's too long, it should put those little arrows on it. But also, I did not change the code between this time and last time, and the lines are the same length. Probably. Now we are, so I have found one thing that happens is I'm using a generic URL, irc.libra.chat, but when you hit that server, it's redirecting you to one of a number of other so like right now we redirected to led.libra.chat, and it seems like they like elements for this. They're all the ones I've seen so far are like an element name, a periodic table element name, and then .libra chat. So that is weird. When we got a ping, we got a bunch of line. Well, no, we're just always getting a bunch of lines too long. So which lines are too long? Okay, so there's two things I think here that are potentially related. One of them is the fact that it seems like we have a new line going on, which we probably shouldn't, I don't think. Especially if there was a, I bet you this is it actually, if there was a new line at the end of line before we add the spaces, that means those spaces are going to go on the next line down I have no idea what that's actually going to do when it writes, but it's not going to do what it's intended to do. That is for certain. So we need to look in IRC client when we process message. Yeah, so this has a new line. Should we not? They're private messages, so we have a new line here as well. I don't want those. See what happens. Let me also print which line is too long, because that's weird to me that that's just continuing to happen over and over, even though we don't see this anywhere. So like we're inside, but maybe the new lines are wrecking that, because then it would end up at the end of the, it would end up after the new line. It would end up after the new line. I'm gonna say line too long and then print line. Um, 1227. We totally, it doesn't even have the D there. But I am also still, so this happens sometimes too. It sends a bunch of nulls. I don't know why. This code mostly ignores them. Okay, we tried to put that. Maybe that character doesn't work. Maybe we can't use that. But also the line is not actually too long, so why is it doing that? Try replacing new line with double quote for printing? Or, oh, empty. Two quotes. Two single quotes. Probably we're on a delay. And that's probably from before I removed it here. Okay, so it is trying to print this. It did break the D though, so it's, oh, but it overwrites the D, I think, and then you're supposed to arrow over. I think Discord display isn't updating. Let me check the preview here. Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm not scrolling. Sorry, or I had it scrolled and then. Let's see. You could try adding a period at the blanks. At the end of the blanks you're padding with. What's up, Abadus? Nice to see you today, my friend. Try removing the slashes. Yeah, sorry, folks. I had the chat scrolled on that. Not performing a carriage return. That's true. It is not performing a carriage return. I'm not entirely sure where which messages are actually one message and which messages are independent. It would be easier to tell if we could see this. Let's see if we can actually see it if it's this character instead. Oh, this is... Oh, okay. See, here's the thing. We're on a different server this time. We're not on LED this time. We're on a different one. And this one, it like molybdenum.irc this time, or .libra. This one has a different message of the day. I've seen this on some of them. They have like Wikipedia excerpt or something that tells you about the thing, molecule, or sorry, the periodic element. That's what I'm after here. Okay, so this time it will scroll much faster. Ah, there we go. That's working now. Yeah. Sweet. Okay. What? And then let's make sure if we do messages from this one. So like, I'm just gonna send a single character. That's definitely less than sweet. Yeah. So if that was not working, then this would have ended up with like ET after it. Okay. So that's awesome. That's fixed. It looks like. So yeah. So we want no new lines. We want no new lines on those items. Especially if we're going to append spaces. If anything, we would want the new line at the end of the spaces. Although, honestly, I don't think it matters. Because I think the terminal might automatically, like, if you write all the way to the end, and then you write some more, I'm pretty sure it will automatically, like, drop you down. And because we're putting all those spaces, it means we are... I think at least it means we're basically getting a new line effectively at the end anyway. And I also think it, even if we aren't, it probably doesn't matter too much because whenever we write, we're always writing an entire line. And whenever we write, we are always immediately moving the cursor to wherever we're about to write to. We're not really relying on that behavior that I described a minute ago where it automatically takes you from the end of one line down to the new one. It is there, but this code is not actually relying on it, I don't think. Okay. Sweet. So this is working. One of the next things I want to... Actually, you know what? The very, very first next thing we should work on is hooking up the backspace character. Because I can type messages, so I have a USB keyboard plugged into the Fruit Jam. I can type messages, and I can press enter, and they send, but that is it. I cannot backspace or do anything else. So this is here. We get a key. If the key is not none, if it's essentially a printable character, then we put it inside of user input. Each frame, like each iteration through the program, user input will get put onto that second line there. So like if I type something, user input gets put on that second line there. And then if I press enter, it'll get sent as a message and then it'll clear out that line. Can you type a long line, maybe with a single character repeated, to see if it scrolls? We could try. Yeah, I assume it will... Well, I don't... So my intention is that it would maybe let you, like... I think my idea is that it would let you use the right arrow. Actually, the more I think about it right now, though, I don't even... I think we just break, right? I think we should just break to the next line. So before I was thinking, like, if we had a super long line, maybe when you press the right arrow, like, every line that's too long maybe scrolls by one chunk, whatever the chunk decides to be. So that way you can, like, right arrow to see any messages that are too long. But the more I think about it now... I think just go to the next line, as long as that doesn't break anything. Actually, it might. So okay. So right now it does basically try to scroll horizontally. Should we put that back? I don't know if I have a super easy way to... Okay, that's my last change, sure. Okay. Let's try this. Let's see if that's printable or not. Wait, why did this... Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, let's turn that off. We don't really need this anymore. Oh, this time we got a timeout error, which means we have the same problem where the disconnect didn't happen, so I gotta change usernames again. I need to catch all the errors and try to disconnect. Although if the SPI is broken, then the internet is broken and we're not gonna be able to disconnect anyway, I don't think. Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's totally true. That is gonna mess up the line count. Yeah, definitely true. Okay, let's do another one of those long lines. Okay, totally that character doesn't work. So let's do change that. I think there's another. Yeah, let's change this one even though it's commented out also, so that way we're not left wondering when that happens too. Okay. Let's do hook up backspace. Maybe then we'll try the right arrow. See if we can hook that up as well. Got about 20 minutes. All right, we need backspace, key code. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I've been stealing these from editor, where most of this code started, essentially. You know, like started with the editor, cut out a bunch of stuff we don't need, added in the IRC stuff. All right, here we go. So get key. Find backspace. Control X, Control S. Q, W, R, O, home, end, down, left, page, new line, delete. We should do delete also, but I'm going to do backspace first. Backspace. How come sometimes these are like constants and sometimes they're values? That's interesting, huh? What does this actually do? That's on window. Get key. Okay, some of these have these things. Oh, also there is not a backspace here. Doesn't matter. Because it's also checking those other two things. I don't know if it's like we actually need to check for all three of these, but yeah, we'll catch it at least. Okay, so if we backspace, what we want to do is change user input to be one less character, essentially. So user input equals itself. Yep, exactly what we want. And then delete. Delete won't really make any sense unless if we also implement the left arrow to like move the cursor backwards, which is not a thing that happens right now. So let's see if backspace works. Oh, I got a broken pipe. Once we get this, I think. I think that depends on when I control C. Like, I think that's kind of like... There's like a timeout built in, and I think depending on the schedule of the timeout against, or the timing of the timeout against when you control C precisely, I think impacts whether it goes like a clean keyboard error break, which has the disconnect catch block, or you get like the broken pipe error, or there's a SPI connect error sometimes. Okay. We're back on this one again, or back on, oh, we're on Mercury now, which also has like this thing telling you about Mercury, so we have a longer thing here. I copied some other stuff. Oh. Well. That. Really what we want is the backspace here, so let's say hello. So another thing is the typing is kind of slow. Backspace? Accidentally hit escape. Yeah, there we go. Backspace through all of world, and then we can send hello. All right, cool. So that's working. I think the typing is slow because of the timeout. Let's stop printing all of these. I don't think we need this right now. I think the typing is slow because of printing not printing, but because of the timeout on the network requests. So I'm actually just going to go and change it. So right now the timeout is set to 1/10 of a second. I'm going to make it lower. All right, so keyboard interrupt, that one's fine. That will do the disconnect as long as we give it a second. And then if we clean disconnect, we can then reconnect using the same name because the server like knows we left. Let's see if the scroll works inside terminal IO. It might be more smooth to let the C. Might be. Not sure. I'm not sure, but I'm probably not going to change it, truthfully, because of the way that all the rest of this is built around. Like, honestly, it's kind of influenced a lot by the editor, and in the editor, it really wanted every line as its own string inside of that buffer list so that you could edit, like, in the middle of the file. Like, you could go to the middle of a line in the middle of the file and start typing, and then, you know, like, press enter, for instance. And it had everything it needed to kind of keep all the lines of the file separate. This one is not an editor, so there's really no need for you to be able to just like randomly write into the middle. So I did cut out a bunch of that code, but the idea of all these lines in the list is still sort of baked into this one. And as a consequence, that's how the scrolling works. I think the other, so one reason why we can't use the real built-in scrolling actually is because we want these two static lines at the bottom. The built-in scrolling is going to scroll the whole terminal whenever you have written on the last line of it. But in our case, like, we're always writing the last line as static, and we're always writing the line above that as static. And we actually want to like mock, like pretend scroll the whole rest of the terminal, all the lines except the last two, which the C code will not do. Now we could cheat by like making a terminal that's 2 lines less, and then we could use label down here, or like we could make another terminal if we really wanted to. We could have a small terminal at the bottom and a big terminal at the top. Then maybe the scrolling built into the core would be fine to use. But as is, I have not done it that way. And I think I'm going to keep it this way because I like the idea of making this full Curses app in one terminal, even at the cost of efficiency if it turns out that it could be faster or whatever. I like the idea of having it all in one thing and stuff like this because it shows how you, like, I want to document this dang thing so that if nothing else, when I pick it up next time, I know how to use it more than having to reread all the code again, which I did this time. Core does support ranged scrolling. I don't know what ranged scrolling means. Oh, is that how, that's basically what I was describing? Where it would let you scroll everything except the bottom 2? If that's the case, that's pretty sweet. We should probably... I'm probably, honestly, if I'm honest, I'm probably not going to, for this project specifically. Another reason that I will give for why I'm probably not going to with this project specifically, currently I'm keeping messages in the buffer after they scroll off the screen. So like if we send a few things here, the thing that scrolled off at the top is actually still in the buffer. So one thought I had is I would like for you to be able to press like up arrow at this point and scroll up to that. And as far as I'm aware, the built-in terminal in the core doesn't keep stuff that's scrolled off the top. So I think it's gone. Like, I could be wrong because I didn't know that it supported that ranged scrolling, if that's what that means. But as far as I know, anything that scrolls off the top is kind of like just gone. Whereas we have it in the buffer here, and the whole way that this is doing this loop and this set line thing kind of handles it nicely for that. Whereas if we try to introduce the the other scrolling, it's going to get all weird. But the cool thing about all of the stuff that we work on is it's all open source, and PRs are always welcome. So if anyone else would like to take a crack at refactoring it to use the core scrolling mechanism instead of or in addition to the kind of way it's doing here, like feel free, and I'd be happy to review, certainly. Gemini says to set the scrolling region in V20, escape top, bottom, R. So I will also mention for the scrolling stuff, one other potential gotcha for this project is because it's using the color terminal. I had to Jankify slightly. I had to slightly Jankify the escape codes, and as a result, more like it needs to be the possible ending characters need to be added here. So some of them aren't going to work. What I'm trying to get at basically is not every ANSI escape sequence will work inside the color terminal right now, because I ended up having to do this extra logic where like I'm kind of like parsing color escape sequences out separately from all the rest of the escape sequences. And all the rest of the escape sequences right now are actually just only the cursor change and erase. I think J maybe was erase. It should be as easy as adding all the other ones here for scrolling and anything else. But yeah, for right now, none of them are there. Like ideally, hopefully I would like to get rid of this. The reason why this exists is because to make the color work, I ended up writing one character at a time through the terminal. So this is all inside color terminal. This is inside essentially the overridden write function. That's going to get passed a string just like the normal terminal. But what we are going to do is remove all the color ANSI sequences from that string. So clean message will be the same string, but with all the color ANSIs removed. And then color map will be a dictionary that has like indexes to colors that say, at this index, we need to swap to this color. At that index, we need to swap to that color, so on and so forth. All the rest of the escape sequences are still in there, though. And then we get into this loop where we're essentially looping one character at a time. And by default, we call terminal.write one character at a time. And in the core, those escape sequences only work, it seems like, if you write the whole thing. So if you write it one character at a time, it doesn't work. So this broke all of the built-in ones in the core. And right now, at least the way I fixed it was check for the escape sequence starter, find the length of the escape sequence, and then try to write that entire sequence rather than doing it one character at a time like it does for everything else. That works, but it is, like I said, it's kind of jankified a little bit because now it means this custom terminal has to be like doing its own handling of ANSI codes that it's then going to try and pass off to the real one, which is not the best, but it does work for now. Let's catch up here. Have to maintain the buffer separately. Escape. So R is for scrolling. So we would need to add R to that thing, and then maybe modify more. Maybe not. It might just work if we add R, but I'm not sure. Our AI buddies with CircuitPython have not been doing much CircuitPython lately. Is there enough public code out there? They're all right. I would say I've used Cloud a little bit. It can do some of the most common stuff pretty well. Like, it's clear that it has ingested, from GitHub. So like the libraries and the learn repos and stuff. Like, it's got a lot of CircuitPython code to pull from. One thing I have found is it's kind of behind. So like it will happily spit you out old stuff. So like display.show, like we changed to root group at some point, but it still wants to suggest show lots of times. So if there's like newer APIs, it doesn't get those so well. And then I've only used it for like relatively high level stuff, not like nitty gritty, like super deep into Circuit Python stuff, really, I suppose. But it doesn't just completely choke. It will spit out something, and if you have some familiarity with Circuit Python, you can kind of figure out what it gave you, figure out which parts are bogus, which parts are good. One of the things I have found, though, with the AI agents that kind of applies to Circuit Python is if there's any carryover to the C Python. So like the IRC client, the way I started this was asking Cloud for an example script of a Python script, a C Python. So not worried about Circuit Python at all, but just asked it for a C Python script that connected to a channel and used the socket API. So don't use any third-party libraries, because there are IRC wrappers. There are like, Pi IRC or whatever, right? But I was like, don't use a library, just use a socket. And then once it spit out that code, it was totally able to do that just fine. And once it spit out that code, I was then able to go and say, okay, now the only thing I need to do to change this is swap in like where we get the socket from. In Circuit Python land, we have connection manager to get the socket from whichever type of network we're on. So I can then do that and just kind of throw this chunk above the code it gave me. And it essentially worked after that. I have since refactored it into this client class, which is, it didn't do any of that for me, but that's one thing that I thought worked pretty well, was like ask it to do some code with a common API, the socket in this case, since the socket works essentially the same. You can ask it to do C Python code with that, and then it's super easy to port. Now, not everything in Circuit Python works that way, so this one did. I wanted to update the core ANSI sequences so they worked on a character basis, but I ended up putting that off, that and the blinking cursor. Yeah, this I think will pave the way for that. I haven't done the cursor yet, but this could also totally show the cursor. And yeah, I do think it would be nice to get it in the core eventually. One thing that we'll need to change in the core is right now we only use a palette for the terminal. We will need to use a tile palette mapper, which is the new sort of fancier palette, dynamic palette mapping thing. But that exists in the core now, so we totally can. A lot of Circuit Python code is open source. The AI bot used it for learning. I think Lady Ida showed how she used AI to help write a driver. I guess it also works for Circuit Python code. My experience is it generates Circuit Python code, but it's calling non-existing libraries. Yeah, sometimes it will make stuff up for sure. Code's not working, but looks nice. What's next? Visual beep would be kind of fun, but I don't have a speaker hooked up right now. Sounds like we need a custom model for Circuit Python. That would be interesting to like get one that has been trained specifically with like only Circuit Python. That would be kind of cool if we could feed it like, here's the docs, here's the core, here's the libraries, here's the learn guide repo, like take all of that stuff and then kind of ignore the rest of the wider Python syntax. That would be cool if we could do that. Tim AI. Well-written system prompt, project setting prompt. The agents have different names. You could explain Circuit Python, points to all the resources, and find the libraries. Greatly improve. Yeah, that's another thing too. I found it's definitely like how you break up your questions, how big of a question you ask, and like what, how detailed you want to get on a point by point. So like if you give it like good specific instructions, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's pretty good at doing them. But if you give it like grandiose, like make me this thing please, then it's like it goes a little haywire. Okay, a couple minutes. We did get backspace working. Let me see. We don't yeah, there's really not much time left. So this is one thing I would still like to do is commands. So like IRC servers oftentimes have these slash commands that you can type in. One thing is though, I have no idea. The buffer? I don't even know what that means. Close the current buffer. I have no idea what that means. It would be nice to get some of these in our client. I don't know that we need everything, probably not, but a couple of these would be pretty cool. One thing though, I have no idea. I have no idea if these are all like client side things or if they actually communicate with the server. Like we slash list happened. Do we need this? It's a key? No. Huh. Doesn't seem like list works. Send a raw IRC command to the server. Why is that called quote, not like message of the day? So that one seem like these work. Oh, this is type a mess, but you can type commands here because I'm doing help. Don't work. Am I actually going? I don't know how away messages work. Where it would appear. I don't see any away messages. Okay. Commands need some more research. Need to figure out if those actually work here and then which ones make sense to try to use in the client. I think at least one that would be good is maybe join. Right now it's just hard coded to a channel, but it might be nice if you could change your channel at runtime by like putting /join, which you can do on this one, on this web one. I could do like join Python, for instance. And that gets us into the Python room. And in the web one, it's kind of like tabbed. It's letting you open multiple channels, so I can still bounce back in between all these channels now. I don't necessarily plan to implement all of that, although again, PR is welcome. But I do think it'd be nice to switch. If you did /join, then it would like disconnect you from the channel you're on and then move you to the new channel. So maybe that will be what we work on next. Some other things for sure. This is, as much as anything, this is a note to myself. I sometimes go back to these last couple minutes where I recap stuff so I know what I'm working on. Next, a couple of things. So yeah, the join command to change rooms. Arrow keys. So up to be able to scroll back to previous messages, and then down to be able to go back down. Right and left to be able to see messages that are too long. Maybe delete. Delete is going to require doing left for a different function. Then we're going to have right and left that scroll lines that are too long, but also right and left that move the cursor as you type. So we'll have to rectify that. But, you know, we could just have it to where if you press the arrows and you haven't typed anything, then it scrolls. And if you have, then it cursors. Maybe it'd be all right, I think. All right. That is going to do it for Deep Dive for tonight. Thank you to everyone for watching. If you would like some more CircuitPython content, I'll be back over on my own channel tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Central Time. Probably picking back up the work on this. So if you are interested in terminal curses, ANSI, IRC stuff, I should be back tomorrow, and I think I'll work on this some more. I will be back next week, as far as I know, for the normal time for Deep Dive. That's the same time we started today, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central for Deep Dive. So we'll be back next Friday for that. And then 10 a.m. Central on my channel we'll be back tomorrow for some more CircuitPython. Thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks to all the folks in the chat. I will see you later.